Whether you've used it to actually book a vacation or just daydream about a trip that you never actually took, you've probably played with Expedia's travel search tool at some point. Well, after a few big changes this past week, that tool is looking a lot different. Expedia's Canadian website got a full makeover to its new mobile-friendly design, and today, Expedia released a new tablet app for iOS and Android. And that new search tool combines both hotels and flights into one set of results, and you can also browse vacation packages by theme. Hi, I'm Brian Jackson, the editor of itbusiness.ca, and today I'm joined by John Kim, the Chief Product Officer at Expedia Worldwide. Welcome, John.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I must say that I've booked a vacation myself on Expedia.com or .ca here in Canada. So I'm an experienced user on your site, and sometimes when I'm just daydreaming or thinking about trips, I'll poke around the tool too.
Excellent. Well, I'm super glad that you're using the tool, and hopefully you'll find that our tablet app is it's a different experience, and so there's definitely some nuances that are that make it, we think, much more optimized for browsing and for that type of touchscreen device, and so hopefully you enjoy it.
Right. So, you know, the first thing I wanted to ask you is there's often this debate between do you have a mobile-friendly website or do you have an app? And in your case, you've got both. The responsive design, so your website can be viewed with any device, tablet, smartphone, desktop, what have you. And you also released a new tablet app today. So why have both?
That's a good question, Brian. And it's something that I think if you start to think about your mobile strategy, you have to have clarity in your mind in regards to what platforms you want to be on and why do you want to be on them. So let's start with mobile web, which is, if you think about the technology today, the device sizes, the input modes, the screen resolutions, the network connectivity of any particular device, whether it be a laptop, a phablet, a phone, 3.5 inches, 4.5 inches, 7-inch mini, 12-inch tablet. As you start to think about the different range of sizes, resolutions, and capabilities on these devices, your website should work across all of those particular devices. And so, you know, that's table stakes for us. So the way we think about it is that, you know, if you want to access Expedia, regardless of the device that you want to access us on, we should have an experience where you can do so. And so to us, this is table stakes. Now the question is, okay, after you've done that, should you take the next step and actually build a dedicated piece of software that sits on someone's device? And the answer is yes, if your intention with the app is to provide an even more optimal experience than what you can provide on the phone. So what's an example of that? The tablet actually is a perfect example of that. Is that when we start to think about the tablet device itself as a touchscreen device and something that people use typically at night, maybe sitting on their couch, watching TV, they want to have a little bit of entertainment, and they want to shop for destinations, probably what you are not excited to see is a page load. That's just a small little thing. It's hey, I want to see something that's more seamless, that I can play around with, that's entertaining, has maybe more animations. Well, an app is going to really be optimal for that. And so, as you can imagine, you're sitting there and you want to browse around, you want something that's fun, very, very graphical, takes advantage of the screen resolution, takes advantage that you just want to use your hands, you don't want to do a lot of thinking. If you're thinking in that way and you really want to develop an optimal experience, that's when you maybe take the next step and build an app. But it's always a risky thing, Brian. That's not something that, you know, I say lightly. It's not a no-brainer that you build an app because you have to still go to market. You still have to convince people to download it. You have this other thing to optimize other than your website. Mm-hmm. And so for many companies, they really have to be thoughtful in regards to, is it worth the effort? Is it going to be a remarkably different or better experience? And are you going to optimize for the context in which a user uses that device? And in all of that thinking, we decided to build this app because we really felt like we could take advantage of those device capabilities and really give our users a different experience than what they're used to on the web.
Yeah, and it's that different experience that I was sort of curious about. And one of the first things I noticed when looking at your app compared to your website is I go to Expedia.ca, and you've got this lovely new homepage layout that looks like it's quite tablet optimized to me, sort of touch friendly there, but it puts content at the forefront. Whereas you go to the app and it makes the tool, the functionality of Expedia, the forefront by putting the search tool there and also inviting you to sort of browse a world map and see what vacation packages are available in that way. So why the different approaches there?
And by the way, in terms of the real differences between the two pages and what we expect to see, the website is really designed around our traditional role in the travel funnel, which is when you want to start to look for prices for a destination for a product line, let's say flights or for hotels or for packages, you pick one of those product lines. You put in a destination, and then you put in dates, and then we give you the prices and the content for those dates for that destination, for that product line. And on the tablet, the difference is that instead of forcing you to necessarily make that decision up front, you can actually browse. And so the website wasn't designed with browse as a first intent. Tablet is designed with browse as a first intent. And so we've decided to make this adjustment because on the web, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to optimize the path. You're trying to make sure that the user can get from point A to point B as quickly and easily as possible. On the tablet, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say we want to have this application actually designed for engagement. And so as you're playing with the tablet app, as you're being entertained, that is fulfilling its core goal. On the web, that's a tricky thing. It's very, very tricky to optimize those clicks when you have very, very few of them. On the tablet, people have much more interactions because it's easier because they're using their hands. They're not typing as much. And so that's really the difference between the two experiences. One is really about traditional, conventional, let's get from point A to B. And the other is all about engagement, making sure that you're having fun while shopping for destinations.
Right. So perhaps that tablet app is more for the daydreaming person that is on Expedia, just thinking about the possibilities of travel and what they might do in the future. Now, we were talking about these different experiences that customers have when they enter Expedia and interact with your brand. And it's really interesting to me how different companies track what their users are doing and how they're using the online product. And of course, I imagine this is something that you do pretty comprehensively at Expedia. You must be very interested in how your users are actually behaving on the service. And I wonder if you can tell us a bit about what you've learned from monitoring analytics, about how your users are behaving on your site.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll mix a little bit of analytics with a little bit of user testing because I think those things come hand in hand. And the reason why we have to look at those things together is that you'll see patterns in the data and you don't know what they mean. And so you have to go in the lab and actually ask people as they're browsing the website, as they're going through the experience, why did you do that? Why did you click on that button? Why did you use that filter? So we do those things interactively. One of the things that's very, very insightful, Brian, is that, or at least insightful for me, is that when you actually watch somebody in the lab searching for any products and services, you'd be surprised. It always shocks people when I tell people this, is that when you watch people in that lab, they typically forget everything they've seen within 90 seconds. So if, for example, if you're again on Expedia and you were to do a search for some hotels in Cancun, and you were to browse around and do your natural clicking behavior and filtering behavior, and you were to look around, click on pictures and hotels that are interesting, and you were to walk away 90 seconds later, and I would ask you, Brian, what did you see, what it was interesting to you, you might actually have a hard time remembering. And the reason why that typically happens is that people aren't really thinking about it. They're just kind of browsing, and they just want to see what they want to see. And it's not until they're in the serious shopping mode that they start writing things down and capturing all those notes, seeing all the prices. They take those notes and they show it to their travel partner, whether it be their wife, their husband, their best friend, their buddies. these are my options. What do you want to do? And then they'll typically, if typically in any travel party, there's some person who's doing all the work, and then some people approve it, and that's how the cycle goes. But unfortunately, in that cycle, prices all change. And so if prices are changing for flights and they're changing for hotels, and you've done all of the writing down and the researching, and you've gone through a process where you share it with friends, it may not be relevant anymore. So one of the things that we built to really try to reduce the friction and make it easier is that we built a product called Scratchpad. And Scratchpad, the way it works is that as you browse the site, we capture and log all the things that you've looked at, and then we make it available for you in a list. And in that list, what we do is we send you a notification every 24 hours letting you know all of the changes to the things that you've looked at, whether that be price changes, availability changes, to give you better context that the data that you've seen, the last data that you've seen, it's either relevant and up to date or it's not. So that's an example of how we make it easier. We send an email so then you can just forward the email to your friends so that you don't have to go through the process of writing everything down. And then if your friends click through on any of the links, they get the freshest prices.
Yeah, that's a really great example of a way that you've adapted to ways that your users are approaching your site and saying, hey, you don't need to write down your own notes. We'll give you this more useful dynamic scratchpad that will actually notify you and update you on the information of the places that you're interested in staying in. But I wonder, I'm really interested in the nerdy details here. Tell me, what was the data you saw? What was the information that you were getting that let you know that was what your users wanted to do?
Well, actually, here's the primary data, Brian, is that there's industry data that's stating that people now do up to 48 searches before they book a component like a flight or hotel. So if you use that as the Uber context for what we've seen, on our site you see a mini version of that. It may not be as extensive as 48, but you see actually a quite large number. And as you start to dig into the information, the question is why? Why would you want to see a pattern from this user where they keep searching every single day using the same dates and same destinations? What are they doing? Are they looking at different hotels? Are they continuing to shop? And the answer is very easy. They're coming back to see if there was any price changes or availability changes. And so for us, as we're sort of looking at that nitty-gritty detail in regards to search behavior and people having the same patterns, we knew there was a clue there. And that's the reason why I went to lab and discovered some of the insights that led us to building this feature.
That's interesting. And we're talking about monitoring data on the site, and we're talking about accessing the site through different devices. And recently, your CEO described Expedia as a travel data platform. So I wonder why at the company it's important to think of it in that way rather than just thinking of it as a web service.
It's a great question. And so if you think about prior to pre-2012, I'll just use that, a couple years ago, the only real device you had to worry about was the desktop device, and you had to worry about a 3.5-inch or just a mobile device. So you really had two devices to worry about. Nowadays, what people are talking about is this device, right? The watch, and how you get onto the watch.
Is that the Galaxy Gear Fit there, or is that the Gear?
Galaxy Gear 2.
Yeah, okay.
And when you get down to this level device, there's not a lot of HTML. So it doesn't look like a website. It's not a fully functioning, if I try to access Expedia on here, it's not going to look great. And so what you have to think about is that you're not a website. You have to be a data service. And the reason why it's got to be a data service is the things that I might ask for on this device are going to be potentially different with how I engage with a full-fledged web UI on my laptop. And so if you build the product in mind, first principles is that you're a data product, then really what you're doing is for every particular device, you're just trying to figure out how do I access the data that Expedia has. And the way that we've been thinking about our infrastructure and what we're building is that we have to process and make the internet work for you, Brian Jackson. So if you have this watch and let's say you do a search on Expedia, we capture some of the hotels that you are looking at
I have the Pebble, so I don't know if it's compatible. It's a little like more older technology than the Galaxy Gears.
Oh, I have a Pebble as well, and it'll work on the Pebble as long as you have an Android device. You can download Expedia.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Is that if you and then you'll have to set it up to get notifications. But if you get those notifications, you'll get all the rich notifications that are available in the Expedia app you can have on your wearable devices. Well, what is it that we're sending you? What does the notification say? Well, the notification
What
is
does it say?
what's that?
What does it say? What notifications are you sending to smartwatches?
Notification could be that you have a gate change. Could be that your flight is delayed. We send a notification if when your check-in time is, when your checkout times are. And one of the beautiful features that we have is that we have a feature where you can share your itinerary with others. And so for me, what I will typically do is if I have a friend picking me up, I'll share my itinerary off my mobile device to my friend. They'll know if my flight's delayed because they see the same live notifications that I do. So I don't have to call my friend or I don't have to email him saying, hey, come pick me up from the airport. All I have to do is share my itinerary once. They'll have it on their app, and they have all the up-to-date information. So if my flight's going to be 1 hour late, or what's happened to me in the past is that sometimes you think your flight's going to leave on time, and you're sitting on the tarmac, and you realize you've been sitting on that tarmac for a little bit longer than you anticipated, and so now there's panic set in because your phone is off and you want to tell your friend you're going to be an hour late. And you don't have to do that because Expedia will take care of that service for you.
Okay. Well, aside from smartwatches, I wonder what other customer touchpoints that you're really thinking about these days, and how is Expedia paving that path and really setting up the journey that you want your customers to take?
Yeah, I mean, so when we're thinking about device and access points, we're thinking about the whole spectrum. This is probably the most atomic thing that we build for, which is we have an atomic level experience for wearable devices, and then we go all the way up to what if you have a high-resolution big screen that you want to have a beautiful experience on. So we think about that range of things that might occur, and we're thinking about all the potential devices that might access us. And we're thinking about one extreme, we're thinking about atomically what is the data we share with you, and then the other end of the stream, we're trying to give you a rich, beautiful experience. So that's why the tablet app is such a different product, is that we want it to be beautiful, we want it to look great on HD high-resolution screens, we wanted to make it browse-oriented. So you can see that it's a completely different product than what you might get on a laptop, which is a completely different product than what you might access on a wearable. But it still all works seamlessly together. And it's just the content and the experience is optimized for the device in the context in which the user is using it.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's really neat to see the work that Expedia has done to update itself for sort of multi-device, data-driven era. And it's great to hear about the background, the reasons why you're designing it this way. I think a lot of interesting lessons that others might want to implement from their own web services or online businesses. So thanks for your time today, John.
Absolutely, Brian. Thank you.
Okay, so again, I was speaking with John Kim, the Chief Product Officer at Expedia Worldwide. For ITbusiness.ca, I'm Brian Jackson.